This is Mia from MiMo Design Laser Files, and today I'll show you how to make these gorgeous fairy light ornaments and also a sun catcher ornament using UV resin. If you don't use resin, that's okay. I have another way that you can make these and make them just as gorgeous. So let's get to it. When I designed this project, I had two things in mind. One was that I wanted to make a fairy light or make a design for my fairy light ornaments, and this is what I came up. I also wanted to make a sun catcher, kind of, that you could hang on your Christmas tree, and when light is turned in the behind, it will glow up. But by using this, I actually loved it so much that I convinced myself that I had to turn it into an actual front for my fairy light ornaments as well. So I will be making this one similar to this, but I want you to be able to play around with this as well without having to buy my files. So this version is available together with a Christmas tree as free files. You can find the link down below in the description, and I would really appreciate if you will tag me in your finished products, because I would love to see what you came up with. Here's an example of some of the materials that you're gonna use. You're maybe not going to use all of them, but I like to show you everything. So first of all, you obviously need resin. You can use UV resin, but you can also use regular resin if that's what you prefer. Whenever you work with resin, you want to use a respiratory mask. I didn't when I did these, and I had a headache for 2 days, so please make sure that you're wearing this. Also gloves, because your hands will get sticky. Take a old t-shirt or something else on your body, because you might end up having resin all over your clothes. If you're using UV resin, you also want a UV lamp. And once you've poured in your UV resin, you could either use a lighter to burst the bubbles, you could use a heat gun, or you could use a torch, which I don't have. For the resin, you want to color it with either resin dye or mica powder. Also, I'll be adding a ton of glitter in mine. To prevent the resin from penetrating or seeping under your material, you want tape. You can get this UV tape, UV resin tape. It came with the kits that I have. I'll drop the links below. You could also use painter's tape, and you could use regular package tape, clear package tape. Also, you want some containers to mix your colors and something to mix it with. To apply, you need silicone brushes, which is the easiest thing to work with. You also need toothpicks and maybe even a needle to go into the tiny areas. Before applying the resin, there's a few things that I want to tell you, and I want to show you how to prepare your wood. So this one was from 4mm poplar plywood, and as you see, it is pretty thick. So the thicker material you use, the more resin you have to add in to fill it. And if you don't fill it all the way up, you will have this kind of I don't know what to call this, but it will make this deep crease. I personally like this, but you could fill it up with clear resin afterwards if you don't like it. But this was wood. I didn't seal it in any way. I cut it directly in my laser without masking tape. And once I was done with the cutting, I sanded it smooth on both sides. I then stained the front with varnish. If you don't want to use that, you can seal your wood with a clear coat of acrylic spray paint or varnish or whatever. That will prevent the color from the resin to leak out into the wood grains. If you see the back, which wasn't treated in any way, you can see how the color is leaking into the grains. But on the stain side you can see it because the stain is stopping it from leaking into the grains, if that makes sense. Since this was 4mm, I did have to use a lot of resin. So this time I went ahead and I cut from 1/8 inch hardwood instead. This is hardboard and it has this shiny laminated front. So I really don't need to do anything about this. The backside is the backside because it's just MDF looking. But this is also smooth. So all I had to do was take a wet wipe and wipe off my residue, and it's actually ready to go now. But try out some different materials, make tiny tests, cut out a star and see what happens. For applying the resin, you want to make a stopper, because if I just added resin to it now, it would just flow under my ornament. So you want to seal the surface with tape. You can either use painter's tape or package tape, or there's this tape that is designed for resin. It's called resin tape, and I will drop a link below, sorry. I could show you, if you use the painter's tape, you will have this rough surface when you're peeling it off. You can fix this, because if you add in, let me just grab my resin. If you add in resin afterwards, let's say this was the front, it's only the back, so it's not that important to me. But by just adding in resin again, you can't see those rough edges. Let's wipe it over a little. So you can actually get away with a lot of mess-ups without it ruining everything. But you still want to apply some tape to your ornament. So for this one, since this will also be a layered tree, I'll just use my painter's tape. I don't worry about the back of it. So you take a piece of tape, regardless of what you're using, and I do advise that you hold it flat to your table and kind of stretch it, and then you can go in and place your ornaments, or sorry, your cutout. If you don't have it completely stretched, it might make some waves on the back. But you then just poke it onto the tape. Be careful that you don't get your fingers inside it. And push down so you're totally sure that it's stuck to the back. For this one, I am going to color the frame with acrylic markers or paint pens like I did with this one. I used metallic markers. I will do that on this one too before we go to the resin. For the other one, it's the front that I want the resin to go to. So if you see this, you might see how the resin lays flat with the surface. I do have some gaps and holes, and I know why I have them, so I'll teach you to avoid them. If you look on the back, you'll see that there are holes down to my resin. So this is the result that I want, which is why I'm taping the front and not the back. I will be using this tape so it doesn't get rough, but you could use the other if you prefer to. And I'll just cut off a strip of this tape, and I'll carefully add it to the front, and I'll use my fingers for now just to get it stuck. And if you don't want to use the entire length of the tape, you could just cut a few smaller pieces like this. Just make sure that the tape isn't overlapping, because it will make a distance, level distance on the tape. And so, since resin is self-leveling, it might make a little bump. So try to avoid overlapping your tape. Now that it's stuck, I'll just go in with a plastic card. If you have a scraper tool, if you used to do vinyl or something like that, you could use that as well. But make sure that it's sitting tight on the surface so you avoid spillage of the resin. So like this, and carefully move it, because I don't want it to lift, although it's stick down to my back here, and you can flip it over. And now these are ready for the resin. A few things that I failed to mention in the materials needed was these pipettes. They are really handy for applying tiny details like this. Also, you might see this clear through surface. It's a silicone mat. So when you are working with UV resin, you will have spillage. By using a silicone mat underneath your project, you can just take your UV lamp, cure it, and then you can peel it up. So instead of having a sticky table or something else, this is really handy. You want to make sure that everything is level, because the resin is self-leveling. But let's get to the mixing. So for the lights, I'll be using 3 colors. I'll be using yellow, I'll be using red, and I'll be using a green. I'll be using resin dye because these are more see-through than the mica powder. So you take your resin, and mine is from Amazon. It wasn't the one that came with the kits, but I will drop the link below if you want these. And you really don't need a lot. So I'll just place a tiny amount in my corner here. I'll then go in and add some green, and just 1 or 2 drops is enough. I just have to take off this cap. So that's 1 drop, and you can see how much color it already gave. So before I add in more, I'll just give this as well and mix it. And for this, I actually recommend that you use these smaller silicone bowls or cups. But it's now mixed, and the beautiful thing about UV resin is that you don't have to let it sit or anything, you can use it directly. So I'll just hold my popsicle here, and I'll take my pipettes. I'll show you both ways on how you can do it. But you squeeze in the end of it, and you just let it soak up as much as possible. And then you can go in and just drip into the holes. I like to do mine a little randomly, so I don't have a pattern worked out for this. And if you spill, that's okay, because this is the back. So you can just take a baby wipe or use your finger and wipe it off. And that's the green. These are easily cleaned if you put them in a cup with isopropyl. Sorry, I'm Danish, so I don't pronounce everything correct. But if you use isopropyl and just add it to in a cup and you pull it up, you can actually remove these remains. So once you have this, it's time to check for bubbles. And I have a really good example right here. So what I want to do is take a needle. If you hold it up to the lights, you might see where did it go. I have one right here. So just kind of poke all these tiny bubbles. And if you take your needle, you could use a toothpick as well, but for these small details, a needle is easier. And if you take it and just make a little swirl around the edges, you'll be pretty sure that it's covering the entire area. You need to flip it a little. Plus you can see that this one is a little lighter than the rest. It's because I actually need a little more resin. So I can just take my needle. And the needle might be, whoops, a little optimistic. Let's take a toothpick. Then you can just put in this little tiny drop of resin. I hate working with gloves, but for this it is necessary. So make sure that all your bubbles are out and burst. And if you have too much like I have in here, you can just kind of take it out by using your needle or a toothpick. I do think I have way too much in that hole, so I'll just use my pipettes and suck up a little. And that's the green. So you just continue this process with the other colors. So I will now mix in, and I'll just use my little cup here. I'll mix in the red. So again, you take a tiny little drop. You don't need more than this. Then you take your dye. And this is not open yet either. And be careful when you're opening or cutting off the end, because it usually makes a mess. And I just used one drop in this as well, so it gives so much color. So this time I'll just use a toothpick to mix it, because I'll show you how to apply it with the toothpick. So once you have your resin, you just want to take a drop. It's a little hard to show you because my camera is facing straight down. But take a drop and just drip it into the ornament. This takes a little longer because you have to use about 2 or 3 drops for this, I think. So now that you have the red in place, you might again see why I want to lift it in the air, because I do have some small bubbles that I want to get rid of. So like I did with the needle, I'll just use my toothpick instead. And if I have some spots that are darker or lighter, I can take a little from the other, or take some of the resin I have on the table and fill in some more. But I think this is... So last color for this bag would be the yellow. And always make sure that you screw on your caps, because if I tilt one of these, I'll have dye all over. So again, I'm using a little silicone cup, but I want the star in my tree to be yellow as well, with some gold in it, so I'll make a little extra. So if I were just to add resin for the holes over here, I might use this much, but I will add in some extra, like. Then you just mix in the yellow, and since yellow is a little light, I might make 2 drops here. And again, I'll use a toothpick. And I now have my yellow. So for this one, I'll also use the pipettes. So that's the yellow, and you do see a big bubble over here. So that's just what I meant, that you have to make sure that you don't have any bubbles. I'll just wipe off my green needle here. And there's this little one. So that's pretty easy if you have a needle. And again, I'm doing the little swirl inside. I have a big bubble here as well. And now that you have this, it's actually ready to go under the lamp. I'll just remove my yellow a little so it doesn't harden. And I might cure this little cup as well to clean it. Set this aside. And my pipettes as well. So once you have it, to make sure that you don't have any additional bubbles, I do recommend that you use a heat gun. You could also take a lighter and just quickly run it over everything. But for these that are holes, I do recommend a heat gun or a torch. The beautiful thing about the heat gun is that it does kind of melt your resin just a little bit, so it will be more liquid. So see, it doesn't seem like I have any bubbles now. So I'll take my UV lamp and I'll just place it on top. And I want this one to cure for about 2 minutes, I think. I'll just swap in my little cup here underneath, so this will cure as well. And I'm going to let it cure outside your ankle so I can continue with the tree. So you still have some yellow left, but I want the star to be filled with glitter. So I have this beautiful glitter from Fleur, which is so fine. So I'll take this and I'll use these little spoons that came with my resin set, and I'll just add in a spoonful. Tap it off. And of course, put the lid on, because I don't want glitter all over either. Like that. So I'll mix it in with the yellow. And hopefully my yellow isn't too dark. There's only one way to find out really. And that's when it's cured and assembled. So since my star has a little bigger area, the great thing about silicone cups is that you can squeeze them and just add in the amount you want. Be careful that you don't add in too much. I'll then go in with my toothpick and I'll kind of push it to the points of the star, and also scrape the bottom so I'm sure that it is attached to the bottom. And I do need a little more, so I'll just add in drops with the toothpick and then take my needle to get it all the way up to the points, and also kind of scrape the edges like this. So I could go in and fill it up, but I actually like that it has this crater inside it. I think it will look gorgeous once it's cured. So this time I will grab my lighter, because it might be easier for you to see. And I'll just kind of tap it and move a finger from behind. Not that it really matters, because I am going to show the front only for this one and not the back. But I still want to leave out as many bubbles as possible, because there will be light showing through this one. And I could show you in just a second how I do have an annoying little bubble in the other star. So I will take my needle again, just to make absolutely sure that I'm bubble free. So for the tree, and that's where it's a little, you need a lot of resin to fill this one. So that's why I made it from thinner material, so I didn't have to use as much. But since this will be layered, I don't mind the gap, and if I want, once it's cured, I can always go in and add some more resin to top it off. So for the tree, I want to use mica powder, because no light will be showing anyway. So let's see if I can demonstrate how much you need for this. I believe that this amount would be sufficient. I don't worry too much about excess, because I do use my excess resin for other projects afterwards. So for this one, you don't want a lot of powder either, so I'll grab a toothpick. And you might see how little I have on it. I want about 2 scoops. So this is really the amount of mica powder I have in it. So you just mix it in. And it's probably easier if you use the popsicle stick for this. Once you have your colors mixed, you can just pour from your cup. And I will take a pen over here. And my eyeballing wasn't great at this one because I have way too little resin in the cup. But I'll just spread it out to secure that it's all going to the edges. So I do need a little more. I might have enough in the corners. See? So you can just take your tool here and fill it up. And I actually think I do have enough anyway. Because as said, I don't mind having the gap in the middle, because it will be layered on top of the tree afterwards. But it's all a matter of preference and taste. So if you want more resin in it, feel free to add more. That's it. And again, I want to make sure that I don't have any bubbles around the edge. So I'll take my needle and just kind of score the edge here. And I don't know if you can see it, but I love working with mica powder because it gives this texture and structure in the color. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I think that's it. If you want with mica powder, you could also make some tiny little swirls to make some effects in your layer. So let's take the lighter. And that's it. So now I only need the stem, and I want it to be brown, but I had a really bad experience because on the other tree I used this bronze colored mica powder, and as soon as I removed the tape, it wasn't fully cured on the inside. So be careful when you're using dye and powder, because not all cure the same. So you have to make absolutely sure that you're using something that will work for curing in the machine. So for this I am going to use mica powder again, but I'll choose another color. So instead I'll choose this dark scarlet. I think it might be a little reddish, but that's okay. It's better than not having it to cure entirely. So let's open this one, and I have another little cup. So for this I just need to color in the stem, so I really don't need a lot of resin. Just a drop like this. And also my powder, I'm not going to need a lot. Let's see if we can mix this in. I think I might have to add a little more resin just to mix the color. I could save this for the other stems as well. So let's make a little extra instead and just put it aside for the others. And I can now go in and pour just a tiny bit. That might even be too much. Let's see. Take your toothpick or the needle and just go around the edge and the inside here. Like that. I love these colors. So again, I'll just take my lighter for this one. And the reason I'm using the lighter and not the heat gun is that I don't really care about bubbles that are minimal, because the back will be hidden anyway, so it will not be that visible. Once you're done, you might see that you have a little resin on the edges, so you can take a silicone brush, a flat brush, and just kind of clean those off. Let's put this to cure, and we can remove the tape and the packer. So now that this is cured, you can see how I can just take out the rest of the resin in my silicone cups. So this is a really easy way to clean your tools and cups, etc. This is now cured, so you just carefully remove your tape. And I do see a few bubbles, but that's okay. But it is gorgeous. I love these colors. It looks so much more bright than it did on the original one. So let's try and take my light and just see how these will light up. So that's beautiful. This was the other. So depending which effect you want, you can easily, I use some lighter colors for this one, and I didn't use as much color as I did for some of this, but this is just amazingly beautiful. So a little more work on not getting the bubbles, and I think this will be amazing. So my tree is cured, and it's time to take off the tape. And you do see now that it wasn't fully cured on the back. So that's what I said about making sure that you're using the right tools when curing. Let's see if the rest is cured. This. So I'll just going to be really careful that I don't drag out the resin from my star, and I'll let it cure on the back side before flipping it over. So my tree is now fully cured, and it's stunning. You can see what I meant with the painter's tape. It will make this rough back, but that's okay because it will be layered on top of this one, and to layer it you simply glue it on top. So let's see how my star looks when we attach the light. And this is absolutely stunning. So that's it, guys. I'll now show you an easier way if you don't want to use resin and still want to make this effect. I took the liberty to assemble the one that I just did or made and showed you in the video. The assembling of these will be included with the file, so this is just to show you how it looks like finished. This was the prototype, so you might see that, well, this was the first one and this was the second. They aren't that hard to make, really. It is a little time consuming with UV resin, but there is an easier way to achieve this same effect. And I cheated a little because I already did it, and I must admit that it kind of blew me over, because this is what I'll teach you to make now. So it's a little clear in the lights, also the colors might not be as strong, and also you don't have that shiny, glossy, pretty UV resin effect, but this is gorgeous. I'm not going to lie. So let's show you how I made this, because this is really easy. The only thing you need is, let me just tuck this away, some acetate sheets. I have these. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but you use them for overheads, and you can print on them and place them on an overhead, and then you can enlarge your image. So the sheets looks like this. It's just plastic. You could also take some plastic from a cereal box or a plastic box and cut it to pieces. And it's really, really easy, because besides painting the layered Christmas tree, I skipped the star because I wanted to glow. So this one I painted with metallic markers. The stem I painted with an acrylic marker that I can't find. And this one was chalk paint. So this took around 2 minutes to paint. Easy peasy. And you could use acrylic instead or something else. That's entirely up to you. For the acetate sheet, all you want to do is cut a piece that is the same size. So I'll just remove this. I just taped it down and show you how. So when you have your plastic sheet, you just place it on top or on the back of your ornaments. If you take a black Sharpie or something else, you can just quickly outline where you want to cut. This doesn't have to be pretty or straight or anything at all. You just want to cut some shapes. So I did cut this as a round, but I'll just show you how to do it like this. So you could save a little material as well. Then you just grab your scissors and you can cut it. And I'll just cut mine somewhere around my line. Again, this will not be visible, so this doesn't have to be pretty. It's just to get an indication of where your lights are. So when you have this, I am going to glue this down. I hope that my super glue will bond with this plastic. So I'll just place a few drops around here and away from where my lights will be. And you could definitely do this with more precision if you want. Then you take your plastic and make sure that you are still on your lights. And pray that this will bond with my wood. And I think it will. Otherwise, you can always just use tape, as I did before. And now to the magic part. You just grab some permanent markers. I'm using Sharpie pens, red, green and yellow. So I know that my star will be yellow. So I'll just paint around my star here. And I paint in circles, that way it will not have that, you know, if you paint you can have that dot in the end. So I'm trying to avoid that. And then I'll just randomly, like I did with my resin, go in and add the lights like this. And I'm keeping in mind that I have 3 colors and I don't want them to overlap each other. So if we take red here, green there, I'll have a yellow over here and maybe a yellow here. Let's add one here as well. So that's the yellow. It's so insanely quick. So I'll do the same and take my red. And if you want a system to this, you're free to make it. I'll just do mine right away. And last but not least, green. And there you have it. So these are now all colored and they are so pretty. I don't know why I haven't discovered this technique before. Once you have it, if you're going to use it as a fairy light ornament, that is, you could also just add a frame or something else. You could cut the sheet to fit. I'll go ahead and experiment with the other countdown front that I had and see if it's possible to achieve this effect. But once you have this, you just glue your tree on top. And I don't know about you, but this took 8 minutes with me talking in between. So I might do this on some more of my files. But anyway, resin projects are really, really fun to do, and you can add glitter, you can do a lot of things that you won't be able to do with this technique. Also, for the remaining ornaments, I decided to skip my UV resin and instead use epoxy resin. So I'll be speeding up that tutorial because I am wearing a respiratory mask and you might not be able to hear what I am saying. But after I made the resin, they are drying right now. I cheated a little and skipped backwards in time. But the regular resin, the epoxy resin, is a little faster than the UV resin. But UV resin is perfect if you're a beginner or just want to play around a little with it. So this is really easy. If you watched this far, I just wanted to say thank you, and I hope that you learned a little bit of the resin and also the acetate sheets. I was going to make you the epoxy resin guide now, but I do realize that this video has become pretty long, so instead I'll be making a sequel. But let's sum up. So these were my prototypes. This was with UV resin. This was as well. I then gave you the instructions to make this UV resin piece that I already assembled. And here's the acetate. I haven't assembled this yet because I need it for the assembling tutorial. So I cheated a little, and after I took footage of this, I went ahead and used epoxy resin to make these 3 versions. I did make a recording of everything, so I'll be making a sequel video to show you how to do this. And while I do it, I'll also be showing you how it would work with the acetate sheets. But now that we are here, we might as well unwrap these ones. So carefully remove the tape. You want this type of resin to cure for 24 hours. Mine hasn't cured for 24. I think they cured for about 16 hours or so. But this is a thin layer, so it is fully cured, and you can feel that by touching it. And unlike the UV resin, I actually think that this will look great on both sides without me having to do any extra work. And the tape can be a little hard to get up. So I didn't do anything on the back of these, so this is just as is, but the front is gorgeous as crazy. So let's just see how this one will look. I'll just remove this one and add it to my little test base. And would you look at this? I love it. So this one I'll be making a separate video for. The trees you could make single layered like they are now. And you do see that some of the tape are coming with. That's not so good, but if you use isopropyl alcohol, I think I said it correct this time, you can wipe it over and get this off. But since I knew that my backers wouldn't be pretty on these ones, I decided to make 2, and then I'll be able to glue these together. And I have gorgeous little tree ornament. Another little thing that I wanted to show that I didn't include in the video because it was so long is that all my remaining resin I use in molds. You can get molds for pretty much anything and everything. So these are just a few that I had in my drawer. So this one was the remaining of my UV acrylic, and I got these, and this didn't actually cure. So some of the colors are insanely difficult to get cured with UV resin. So you'll have to make sure that you know that if you play around with it. These 2 are completely cured. This one I would just top up with a clear coat of acrylic, and I would then go in and cure it again. This one was the epoxy, and the letters over here was also from my epoxy. And to be honest, I actually prefer to use the regular epoxy over the UV resin because it's not sticky afterwards. The UV resin do have a tendency to become a little sticky once it's cured. You can easily again use isopropyl alcohol and wipe it over, and then you can make it soft. But these regular resin, epoxy resin, they will cure immediately and they are just stunning. So these were from my remaining epoxy resin, and also you might see the difference if we just put these down again. From this front to the one that I did with UV resin. So I didn't apply as thick as a coat as I did on this one, but there's hardly any bubbles, if I even have any. I don't think I have, compared to the UV resin. So the regular resin is actually easier to work with and will give you a prettier result in the end. And you can of course top this off with additional resin, but I actually like that you have this roof because it will make it look more like it's stained glass. So this is it for me now. If you want to watch the other video on the epoxy resin, please subscribe to my channel and watch out because I will have it uploaded soon. I'll also teach you a little more about how to make these but as inlay ornaments, and yes, I'll be teaching you a bunch of things in the next tutorial as well. The files for not the Fairy Light but the ornament version of this was the original ornament version, but I don't know if you can tell, but these lines were pretty thin, so I did stretch them a little in this version. So I have one where the bottom is also rounded, so it's not just for the fairy lights. So this file, as well as the Christmas tree, will be delivered to you for free, and you can download it from our website or some of my Facebook groups. I dropped the links below in the description. Let me know how this will all work out for you. I love to see results, so please tag me in your posts, videos, whatever you are making, and I'd love to see what you come up with. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.